I have often marveled and wondered at the strength of our God and the strength of his love. For our God is an awesome God and a vulnerable God. If I were all powerful, I doubt I could be all loving, because if I had the power to turn off the part of the heart that could grieve, I might do it. I would not be a God that would live with regret. If I were the God of Genesis 6 and I was feeling fed up with the world and its sin, or more specifically mankind who filled the earth with evil, I would not be heavy-hearted when condemnation fell, when bad guys got what they deserved, when the sky broke and the rain came down. I would not be strong enough, I could not love hard enough to care anymore. In him we live and move and have our beings, and all things are held together by him. So there is, I believe, an atomic elasticity and gravity to our very cells that is supernatural and divine in nature. And in the space and the time between no oxygen or low oxygen in the blood and healthy oxygen O2 saturation levels in that bloodstream, God is there, intimately. When the firmament broke and the flood came, I believe God wept bitterly from the deep. From a deep unbroken from Adam's generation to Noah's. Because God had plans for man, and they were grand. God had hope in man. He had made him for his pleasure, and he had made humanity for a purpose, for partnership, to be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, subdue it. But man had filled the earth with evil instead. Regret. But he still feels, and his heart is deeply troubled. It's been said that the opposite of love is not hate, but apathy. So God can hate the sin, but he can never stop caring about the sinner. There is a disservice, I believe, then, that is done to the flood story at times. Because it reads like, and we think that God was mad, so he sent the flood, and then the bad people drowned, and he was glad about it. As if there was this space between where God was and where they were, and in that space between, God was not. As if his omnipresence was turned off. As if the God that could know the psalmist's thoughts before he had them was now blocking the channel. But I believe that the same God that knit all of those one-day drowning people together in their mother's wombs was just as close when they died as when they first lived. And when oxygen failed to supply vital organs with life, God was there in the space between, crying. Because God had a purpose for them, a purpose for man. He had given humanity authority, trusted them, never stopped loving them. Lament. He had dreams of them working together in the world, subduing it, because you must realize God could have just subdued it himself, right? But his oxygen failed to circulate through the body, failed to feed organs, and God was there in the space and time in between. He felt it all, and he knew that parts of the dream were dying. Lament. The last words of Eric Garner. I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't. See, sometimes we do a disservice to the story. Sometimes we forget that before this man was born, God knit him together in his mother's womb. That the Word with God was God, the same atomic elasticity, cellular gravity that was keeping him alive. That when the oxygen failed to move through his body and feed vital organs with life, and fatal cascading effects ensued, that God cried. You see, God made man with a purpose, giving humanity authority, power, resources. And when officers of the law took that authority and put a man into an illegal and ultimately fatal chokehold, God cried. Lament. Because I believe God was also there in the oxygen of the blood, of the arms, of the men that were activating the effects that would ultimately kill him. Crying. Lament.